I so appreciate and I want to offer my thanks to Foundation Global Education for having me today. I'm going to share my screen. And what's really important to us is that there's not one school. Yes, we're across the street from Deerfield Academy, but Deerfield Academy is not the right school for every student. So we make sure that students are introduced to a wide variety of schools and programs. Many students come here thinking, oh, I know someone, my cousin went to Choate, or I know someone who went to Hotchkiss, or my parents have a friend who went to Taft. And that's often how schools get started, in making a list, and that's okay, but we're going to add to that and making sure that a list is rounded out to be well representative of many options for our students. I believe I also have shared students from China and Hong Kong have most recently gone on to these schools. The list I just showed you previously where all of our students have been going, but in the last probably 3 years, this is where our students from China and Hong Kong have been attending after Bement. The next step really for families is they start, after learning about our school and finding out about Bement and saying, this sounds like a place I really like, and I feel like I'd like to consider this more seriously. Before we even get to the application process, I encourage all of our students and families to spend time on our website, and many of you may have already done that. And at the end of the presentation, I will share with you our website address as well as my email and WeChat. But for you to really spend time on our website and look at the different programs, and many of you shared all kinds of things that you guys were interested in, different sports, writing, social diversity and equity and inclusion efforts. You guys were talking about these things that are really important to you. And those are things that you should think about as you're looking at these different schools and say, can I pursue those things that I really like and are really important to me? And can I see myself at these schools? And really dig deep into the school's websites. Look at the videos. Look at what is being said by students and by parents on our website. So it's important that you spend that time. So then you decide, yes, I want to apply to Bement. So what do you need to do? So Foundation is going to help you with this process. But as a reminder, what I share is that at Bement, the first thing is you have to fill out an application. And that is usually just information, biographical information about you and your family. There's often some short answers, some for you, some for your parents or family members to fill out. And then often there's some longer questions that you have to fill out. At Bement, we have an application, but we also accept what's called the SAO. It's the standard application online. If you are going to apply to more than one school, which you should not just apply to Bement, or you should not just apply to one school or even 2 schools. You need to apply to a couple schools. I would say use the SAO, because then you only have to fill out one application and it will go to all of us. And that is what we highly recommend. So please keep that in mind. There's an application fee that your family has to pay to submit for it's usually about $100. Some schools it might be a little more, a little bit less. Schools will have a writing sample. If you're doing the SAO, that writing sample is often included right there. For some schools, they might ask you to write something additional. We ask you to write something as part of your interview in addition to this. So schools will have different things that they might require, but they're going to want to see your own writing. The application writing sample, we know you've probably practiced that and you've proofed it and maybe had someone look at it, and that's okay. We want that to be a prepared writing sample. But schools will also ask you for writing that is more sort of at the moment, and that's going to be something that we don't want you to get help on, and we don't want you to necessarily proof, but really to be something that we see, what is your writing like in the moment. We're going to ask for letters of recommendation. Most schools ask for 2. That is from your current, so next year when your school year starts in September, you're going to want to ask your English and your math teachers for recommendations. Some schools will ask for a principal or maybe just a personal recommendation or another recommendation. That's why it's important to check schools' websites to find out what is required. But at Bement, we ask for the English and the math. We also ask for 3 years of a transcript, and that's like your report card. So for a student like Toby, you said you're in 4th grade and you're going to be in 5th grade in the fall. When students apply to Bement, if you're applying for 6th grade, that means we're going to want to see 3rd grade, 4th grade, and 5th grade report cards. Okay, so it's your 2 years plus your current year. And we know sometimes, particularly for those of you in school in China, the current year is hard to get, and sometimes you can't get it right away. It doesn't come until January or February, and that's okay. You just need to let us know that that's when your school is going to send those reports. Testing is optional, and I know that students are probably very happy to hear that. Because of COVID, a lot of our schools used to require testing, and Bement was one of them. Because of the challenge that for families to have access and for students to have access to testing, we have made that optional. We feel it's not, we wanted really to make it it wasn't an equal experience, and we felt that the equity was not there if we still required the testing. So we have made that decision to make testing optional for the last 2 years and for this coming school year. If you have testing, you can send it to us, but it is something that we know the challenge of getting that done right now. And that, I say SSAT testing, that also includes TOEFL testing, IC testing, I think that's it, usually what you guys take. So, so if you have it, you can send it to us, but it is not required, and it will not be held against you if you don't submit it. And then the last and final piece that's a required part is your interview. And that's, I would say, even though it's listed last year, that's probably one of the most important parts of this application process for Bement. For some schools, it may not be as important, but for us, it's important. And when I say it's important, I don't want to put a lot of pressure on this and you have to be worried about it, because as soon as students start to worry about it and parents worry about it, they think we have to practice and we have to be really prepared. And what I say to students is I want you to be prepared to talk about yourself, but I don't want you to be prepared with a prepared statement. I don't want you to read anything. We can tell when students are interviewing and you've got a piece of paper up on your screen or a document that's up and you're telling us and you're reading us prepared statements. That's not great. We want you to be natural. We want you to just tell us about why you love to write, or why you love soccer, or why, you love doing things with your grandmother. Those are things that it needs to be a natural conversation. So just to be prepared to talk about yourself, okay? And be prepared that schools are going to ask you, like, tell me what you like to do. Tell me about your family. Tell me about when you have all your homework done and you finish practicing the cello, what do you choose to do for fun? So those are things that we want you to be thinking about and be ready to talk about, but you don't need to have prepared statements about those things. Does that make sense? Okay, that's an important part of this.